Have you ever been told you have to quit bread, rice, potatoes, or all carbs just because you have high blood sugar, prediabetes, or diabetes? Maybe you tried cutting them all out, but just ended up craving your favorite comfort foods and thinking, am I really supposed to eat like this the rest of my life? Well, here's the good news. Here's something you might be happy to hear. You may not have to give up carbs entirely. The bigger question is how you eat them. It's not just about the carbs themselves, the type, the serving size, what you pair them with, and even the order you eat your meal. All these things can change how your blood sugar reacts. There are even simple tricks that can help keep your blood sugar steadier. No need to turn every meal into a battle with carbs. Today, I'll show you 7 practical, real-life strategies you can use for everyday meals. Yes, including bread, rice, potatoes, and pasta. And one of them involves something you probably already have in your fridge. Most people don't realize it can actually change how your body handles carbs. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll have an easy game plan you can use starting with your very next meal. If you like practical health tips you can actually use, hit subscribe and turn on notifications for more from Healthy You. Now, let's get started. Before we dive into the 7 strategies, there's one thing you need to know. These tips aren't a magic fix, and they're not a substitute for your doctor's advice or diabetes meds. Even healthier carbs like brown rice, oatmeal, and whole grain bread can still raise your blood sugar. The goal isn't to make that go away, but to find ways to help keep the spikes smaller after you eat. And remember, everyone's blood sugar responds a little differently, depending on what you eat, your activity, stress, meds, and even your own metabolism. If you check your sugar, that's actually great info. It helps you and your doctor see how your body responds to different foods and routines. And if you're on insulin or meds that can cause low blood sugar, check with your doctor before making big changes. With that out of the way, let's jump in. Strategy number 1 is actually about what you do to your rice, potatoes, or other starchy foods before you eat them. Strategy number 1, cook, cool, and reheat your starches. First up, and it might surprise you, sometimes it's not just what you eat, but how you prepare it. For example, when you cook rice or potatoes, the starch becomes easier to digest. But something interesting happens when you cool cooked starches down. But when you chill them, some of that starch changes into resistant starch. Your body can't digest it all, so it ends up feeding your gut bacteria instead. The cool part? Some research shows resistant starch can mean a smaller blood sugar rise after a meal. So let's make this practical. Let's make it real. Say you're making rice for dinner. Instead of eating it fresh and hot, try cooking it ahead, cooling it in the fridge, and reheating it when you're ready to eat. The same basic idea can be used with some other starchy foods, including potatoes and pasta. But just to be clear, cooling and reheating doesn't make rice low carb. You're still eating carbs, and portion size still counts. Plus, effects can vary based on the food, how you cooked and cooled it, and your own body. So it's a helpful trick, not a free pass. Quick food safety tip. Don't leave cooked rice, potatoes, or pasta out for hours. Cool, refrigerate, and reheat thoroughly. And if you use a glucose meter or continuous glucose monitor, you can even turn this into a personal experiment. Compare your response to freshly cooked rice with your response to a safely cooled and reheated portion, while keeping the portion size and the rest of the meal similar. You might be surprised how your body responds. And here's the best part. We're just getting started, because our next strategy doesn't require changing how you cook your rice or potatoes at all. This one's even easier. What you eat with your carbs matters. Strategy number 2, never eat your carbs alone. Here's another simple strategy that can make a big difference in the way you approach carbohydrates. Don't think about carbs in isolation. Think about the entire meal. For example, there's a big difference between eating a large bowl of white rice on its own and eating a moderate portion of rice as part of a balanced meal with vegetables, protein, and healthy fats. Why? Because protein, fiber, and fat can slow digestion and change how quickly glucose from your meal enters your bloodstream. Fiber-rich foods can also help you feel fuller, which may make it easier to keep your carbohydrate portions reasonable. Let's make this practical. Instead of having toast with jam for breakfast, try whole grain toast with eggs and avocado, plus some vegetables or fruit. Instead of eating a large bowl of rice on its own, Combine a moderate portion of rice with grilled chicken or fish and plenty of non-starchy vegetables. And instead of having a plain baked potato as the main part of your meal, pair it with a source of protein and a generous serving of vegetables. Now, there's an important distinction here. I'm not saying that adding protein, fat, or vegetables somehow makes unlimited carbohydrates harmless. Portion still matters, and not every food labeled healthy will have the same effect on your blood sugar. A meal can contain whole grains and healthy fats and still provide more carbohydrates or calories than you need. So rather than asking, "Can I eat this carb?" try asking, "What can I pair with this carb to make the meal more balanced?" That's a much more useful question. And there's another strategy that takes this idea one step further, because it's not only what you eat with your carbohydrates that matters, it may also matter what you eat first. And that's our next strategy, a surprisingly simple change that doesn't require buying a different food or changing your favorite meal at all. Strategy number 3, change the order of your meal. Now here's a strategy that's surprisingly simple, and it doesn't require you to buy a different type of bread, rice, or potato. You may be able to change your blood sugar response simply by changing the order of your meal. Think about a typical dinner. Maybe you start with the rice or potatoes, then eat your vegetables and protein afterward. Instead, try reversing that sequence. Vegetables first, protein next, carbohydrates last. Why might this help? When you eat fiber-rich vegetables and protein before your carbohydrate-rich foods, the meal may slow the rate at which glucose enters your bloodstream. Research in people with type 2 diabetes and prediabetes has found that eating vegetables and protein before carbohydrates can reduce the post-meal rise in blood glucose compared with eating carbohydrates first. Let's make this incredibly practical. Imagine you're having grilled chicken, broccoli, and rice. Instead of reaching for the rice first, start with your broccoli and other non-starchy vegetables. Then eat your chicken or other protein. And finally, enjoy your rice. The foods haven't changed. Your portion hasn't necessarily changed, but the sequence has. And this can be especially useful when you're eating out. Suppose you're at a restaurant and there's a bread basket on the table. Rather than automatically filling up on bread while waiting for your meal, you could start with the salad or vegetables when they're available. Then eat your protein and have the bread or other starch later. Now, I want to keep expectations realistic. This isn't a trick that prevents blood sugar from rising. Carbohydrates can still raise your glucose, and the magnitude of the effect depends on the food, portion size, and your individual metabolism. But changing meal order is simple, costs nothing, and may be worth trying, especially if you're monitoring your blood glucose. And if you use a glucose meter or continuous glucose monitor, you can compare similar meals eaten in different sequences and see how your own body responds. Next, we're going to look at another surprisingly simple addition to your meal, something acidic that may help moderate the blood sugar response to carbohydrates. And you probably already have it in your kitchen. Strategy number 4, add acid to the meal. Here's another surprisingly simple strategy, and you may already have it sitting in your kitchen. Add a little acidity to your meal. We're talking about foods like vinegar, lemon juice, or lime juice, particularly when they're incorporated into a balanced meal. Why might this matter? Research suggests that consuming vinegar with a carbohydrate-containing meal may modestly reduce the rise in blood glucose afterward. One possible explanation is that vinegar's acetic acid may slow gastric emptying and influence how quickly carbohydrates are digested and absorbed. But let's turn that science into something practical. Instead of eating a plate of rice with chicken on its own, try adding a vegetable salad with a vinegar-based dressing. Having potatoes? Try them alongside vegetables dressed with lemon juice or vinegar. Or add a squeeze of fresh lemon or lime to a meal that already fits your normal eating pattern. The key word here is alongside. You don't need to drink vinegar straight from the bottle, and I definitely wouldn't recommend doing that. Undiluted vinegar can irritate your mouth, throat, and digestive tract. And frequent exposure to acid can also affect tooth enamel. And remember, vinegar isn't a magic shield against carbohydrates. A large serving of white rice is still a large serving of white rice, even if you add vinegar. Think of acidity as one small tool in a much bigger strategy. Reasonable portions, fiber-rich foods, adequate protein, and an overall balanced meal. If you enjoy vinegar-based dressings or lemon on your food, this is an easy habit to experiment with. And now we're going to tackle one of the biggest factors of all, the type of carbohydrate you choose. Because bread, rice, potatoes, and other carbs don't all behave exactly the same way in your body. Strategy number 5, choose slow-burning carbs. Now let's talk about the type of carbohydrate you're putting on your plate, because not all carbohydrates behave the same way. Think of the difference between kindling and a log on a campfire. Highly refined carbohydrates can be digested relatively quickly, while less processed, higher fiber carbohydrate foods often take longer to digest and may produce a slower rise in blood glucose. So instead of automatically reaching for highly refined options, look for less processed carbohydrates that are higher in fiber. For example, consider swapping white bread for a higher fiber whole grain bread. Instead of sugary breakfast cereal, try steel-cut or less processed oats. And instead of making refined grains the centerpiece of your meal, consider foods like beans, lentils, or intact whole grains more often. But here's an important point. Whole grain does not automatically mean won't raise your blood sugar. Some whole grain breads, cereals, and crackers can still contain a substantial amount of rapidly available carbohydrate, and portion size still matters. What you're really looking for is the combination of less processing, more fiber, and a reasonable portion. Fiber can slow digestion and absorption, and higher fiber carbohydrate foods also tend to be more filling. That can make it easier to manage the amount you eat. So don't think of this as choosing between good carbs and bad carbs. Think, which carbohydrate gives me more nutrition and keeps me satisfied for longer? For example, a serving of beans or lentils provides carbohydrates, fiber, and plant-based protein. That's very different from getting the same amount of carbohydrate primarily from a sugary drink. And here's the good news. You don't have to completely eliminate your favorite foods. If you love bread, look for a higher fiber option. If you love potatoes, keep the portion reasonable and pair them with protein and vegetables. If rice is a staple in your household, you can still enjoy it. Just pay attention to the type, portion, and what you eat alongside it. Because our next strategy may be even more important than whether your rice is white or brown. How much of it actually ends up on your plate? Strategy number 6, control the portion, not just the food. Now here's a mistake I see people make when they're trying to eat healthier. They focus so much on choosing the right carbohydrate that they forget about one of the most important factors of all, how much they're eating. You can choose brown rice instead of white rice, whole grain bread instead of white bread, or sweet potatoes instead of fries, and those may be nutritious choices. But if the portion is very large, you're still consuming a substantial amount of carbohydrate, and your blood sugar may rise accordingly. So instead of thinking, I can't eat carbs, try thinking, how much carbohydrate do I actually need at this meal? One simple approach is the plate method. Fill about half your plate with non-starchy vegetables, things like broccoli, leafy greens, peppers, cauliflower, or green beans. Then use about 1/4 for protein, such as fish, chicken, eggs, tofu, or lean meat. And reserve roughly 1/4 for your carbohydrate-rich food, whether that's rice, potatoes, whole grain pasta, or another starch. This isn't a rigid rule that works perfectly for everyone. Your individual carbohydrate needs depend on factors such as your health, medications, activity level, and overall eating pattern. Visually, the plate method can help prevent carbohydrates from taking over the entire meal. And there's another advantage. When you combine a moderate carbohydrate portion with plenty of vegetables and an appropriate source of protein, you're creating a meal that's generally more balanced and satisfying. So remember, don't just ask, is this a healthy carb? Also ask, how much am I putting on my plate? Because sometimes the difference between a meal that causes a very large glucose rise and one that produces a more manageable response isn't eliminating the carbohydrate. It's simply eating a more appropriate portion. And our final strategy may be the easiest one of all, because you don't have to change what you eat. You just need to move a little after you eat it. And now we come to one of my favorite strategies, because it doesn't require you to buy a special food, change your favorite recipe, or give up carbohydrates. Simply move after your meal. When you eat carbohydrates, your body breaks them down into glucose, which enters your bloodstream. Your muscles can use that glucose for energy, and when your muscles contract during physical activity, they can take up glucose from the bloodstream. That means a little movement after eating may help your body handle that incoming glucose more effectively. And you don't need to run a marathon. A short, easy walk after a meal can be a practical way to get moving when blood sugar is naturally rising. Research has found that exercising after meals can reduce post-meal glucose excursions compared with remaining inactive, with activity performed relatively soon after eating tending to be particularly useful. So think simple. After dinner, instead of sitting down immediately, take a gentle walk around your neighborhood. If the weather isn't cooperating, walk around your house. You could even do some light household chores or go for a walk while you're talking on the phone. The goal isn't to exhaust yourself. It's to avoid sitting completely still as your blood sugar rises. And here's an important point. You don't have to wait until you've eaten a huge meal to benefit. Making a short post-meal walk part of your regular routine can be much more sustainable than trying to squeeze in one intense workout at the end of a busy day. Of course, if you have balance problems, mobility limitations, heart or circulation problems, or you're not accustomed to exercise, choose an activity that's safe for you and talk with your healthcare professional if you're unsure where to start. And if you take insulin or medications that can cause low blood sugar, be aware that physical activity can affect your glucose levels. So, the next time you finish a meal, remember, you don't necessarily need a complicated workout. Sometimes, one of the simplest things you can do for your post-meal blood sugar is to put on your shoes and take a walk. And now, let's bring all 7 strategies together into one simple carb-friendly meal makeover you can actually use in everyday life. We've talked about what carbohydrates you eat, how much you eat, and even the order in which you eat them. But there's one more factor worth considering: when you eat them. Your body doesn't necessarily handle glucose exactly the same way at every hour of the day. Our metabolism is influenced by our circadian rhythm, sleep, activity, and other factors. And some research suggests that glucose tolerance can be lower later in the day than earlier. That doesn't mean you need to follow a strict rule like never eat carbs after 6 p.m. That's simply too simplistic. What may matter more is avoiding a pattern of eating very large, carbohydrate-heavy meals late at night, especially if that also means you're eating close to bedtime. Instead, try to make your meals more balanced throughout the day and pay attention to how your own body responds. If you're hungry in the evening, for example, you don't necessarily need to avoid food altogether. A smaller, balanced option may be more appropriate than a large serving of refined carbohydrates or a sugary snack. And if you're monitoring your blood glucose, your own data can be particularly helpful here. You may notice that the exact same meal produces a different response depending on when you eat it, how active you've been, and how well you've slept. So don't become afraid of the clock. Think of meal timing as one more piece of the puzzle. Your overall eating pattern, carbohydrate portions, food quality, physical activity, and individual health needs still matter far more than following an arbitrary cutoff time. And now, let's put everything we've learned together and build a simple carb-friendly meal from start to finish. Now let's put all 7 strategies together with a simple carb makeover. Imagine you're having one of your favorite meals: rice, grilled chicken, and vegetables. Instead of starting with a huge serving of rice, begin with your non-starchy vegetables. Then enjoy your chicken or other protein, and have a moderate portion of rice afterward. If you've prepared the rice ahead of time, safely cooling and reheating it may also increase its resistant starch content. Add some flavor with lemon juice or a vinegar-based dressing, and when you're finished eating, take a short, easy walk if you're able. That's a completely different approach from simply saying, rice is bad, so I can't eat it. And you can apply the same idea to other foods. Love potatoes? Keep the portion reasonable. Pair them with protein and vegetables, and consider preparing them in ways that increase resistant starch. Love bread? Choose a higher fiber option. Pair it with protein rather than eating it alone, and pay attention to the portion size. The goal isn't perfection. It's about making several small changes that work together. Because when it comes to carbohydrates, you don't necessarily have to choose between eating everything you love and eliminating carbs completely. Sometimes the smarter approach is simply to change how you eat them. So, let's quickly put the 7 strategies together. Number 1, cook, cool, and safely reheat your starches to potentially increase resistant starch. Number 2, don't eat your carbs alone. Pair them with protein and fiber-rich foods. Number 3, try eating vegetables first, protein next, and carbohydrates last. Number 4, consider adding some acid, such as vinegar or lemon juice, to your meal. Number 5, choose less processed, higher fiber carbohydrates more often. Number 6, pay attention to portion size, not just the type of carbohydrate. And number 7, take a short walk after your meal if you're able to do so safely. None of these tricks make carbohydrates disappear from your bloodstream, but together, they can help you make smarter, more balanced choices and potentially reduce those post-meal glucose spikes. Now, let's bring it all together with one final takeaway. So, if you love bread, rice, potatoes, or other carbohydrates, you don't necessarily have to say goodbye to them. The goal is to be smarter about how you eat them. Choose higher quality carbs, watch your portions, balance your plate, consider the order of your meals, and get a little movement after eating. And remember, these strategies aren't a substitute for personalized medical care, especially if you have diabetes or take glucose-lowering medication. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Healthy You for more practical, evidence-conscious health information. And tell me in the comments, which carb would be hardest for you to give up? Bread, rice, or potatoes? Thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next Healthy You video.